Okay, the first day for the creating the mirror frame is that you want to come up with your theme and your idea. And then you're going to spend the first day making all of the parts that will go around the frame. This may take more than one class, but the thing to remember is that these pieces need to stay extremely plastic, because depending on how many days go in between each of your days of making this, you don't want them to dry out. Also, they're much smaller than most of our large projects, and the smaller the object, the faster it dries. So whatever you put this in, a plastic bag, or wrap them individually in saran wrap, just check on it and maybe add water periodically if you know you're going to take a couple days to make the parts. So I am just fast forwarding this pretty quickly to show how I'm making the different parts of my Alice in Wonderland frame. So I made the hats hollow, and most of the things are slabs. So the Cheshire Cat smile, the leaves. This is the teapot. So I actually made it whole. But as everyone knows, this is going to be 3D coming off of something that's 2D. So after I get the main shape for my teapot, I'm going to cut it in half because I only need half of it. So I cut off the big large chunk on the back. That way one side is flat and it'll stick to my frame a lot better. It'll be less clay, it will be lighter. Even my hat that's in the background right there, it is made out of slabs and it is hollow. I haven't stuck it together yet, as you can see. Here's my clock, the watch that the rabbit carries. I'm just pressing an indent around the edge so that it'll be able to look like it has a little edge to it. So these are going to come off of a flat 2D frame. You can have them as three-dimensional as you'd like. Here I'm going to add the different symbols for the cards for the Queen, from the Queen of Hearts. So really I just looked up Alice in Wonderland and was trying my best to come up with imagery that would be easy to make. This is a flower, and the one thing, if you ever want to make a flower, the petals can be pretty darn thin. They can be as thin as you can probably pinch the clay so that they look more realistic and they're more bendable. A lot of petals have that curve and that indent to them. So I'm taking each of my big pieces and pinching the clay really thin. Also, this way it won't be a super thick flower. So when you're making any kind of flower, the petals are the largest on the outside and then they get smaller as they go inside to the center of the flower. So I'm just making the same kind of shape, thinning it out and then adding it. If you blend the inside and the outside, that way it should hopefully stay together. And obviously with petals that are different size, they start to look a little 3D, so they pop out a little, which looks a little more realistic. So once you're done with all of your pieces and you are ready to start your frame, you can bag these up and make sure that they have water on them because you do not want them to dry out. We're going to try and attach them to the frame. Depending on what you make, you might have them completely cover the frame, or they might be part of the solid frame and then they emerge from the frame. The next section and the next day might be 3 days later, it might be 2 days later. We're going to make the frame for the mirror. Remember, we all have a 10 by 10 inch mirror, and you need to have your clay be the width that would enable the mirror to be on the inside edge of the back. So the first step is to roll out a slab that's larger than 10 by 10. We are not going to use this whole slab, so it seems like a waste of rolling, but we need to make sure it's rolled rounded so nothing shrinks back and makes your frame lopsided. So even though you have to roll a giant frame, you're not going to use all this clay. You just want to make sure your slab is wider than 10 by 10. You can decide how thick the edges of your frame. If you'd like it 1 inch, 2 inch, it's up to you. Mine is, I have this ruler from school, and so I'm just doing the 1 inch mark, which is the middle of the ruler. Whatever size you want, just make sure all 4 sides of your frame match. So even if you're just making up a random width that you don't have a ruler at home, just make sure all 4 sides match. So here you can see all of my strips I'm cutting are going to be the same width. And then once they're all cut, we can start arranging them in a square. The easiest way to do this is to put your paper, fake mirror, on the table or on a tray first. And then when you lay the slabs on, you want them to overlap the paper so that you know they will be overlapping the mirror when it's done. So here's an example of what I mean. Okay, so you'll take your strips and you'll lay them on the 10 by 10 inch piece of paper. This is acting as our mirror. When you build this frame, you want it to overlap the mirror edge. All of our clay shrinks. You don't want it to pop off from the mirror edge, but you don't want it to be too small so that the mirror would fall through the center. So work as best you can so that you know this is going to overlap that 10 by 10 square. And then when you're ready, you can attach your parts. I have mine in a bag, and I'm going to arrange them first, figure out the best arrangement. I really wanted to hide my whole frame because my frame is not that pretty. So I was kind of thinking of all the mess ups and glitches on my frame that I'm going to try and hide. But again, you might want your frame to be very noticeable and just have a few parts here and there that are going to be appliqued on. So it's up to you. Have fun. I'm excited to see how creative everyone gets. And don't forget that I'm laying these on here just to figure out the order, but then you do have to attach them. So depending on how many pieces you have, it might take a long time, but it's worth it. It's going to look really cool in the end.